Happy 4th of July, guys. I'm sure everybody knows what happened on this day 247 years ago when the forefathers got together and they signed the Declaration of Independence, thus acknowledging their independence from the British Crown. I'm sure all of us know that, right? That's what we're celebrating today. But what most of us don't know, I'm willing to bet, is actually what led up to that. And I feel there's a lot of value in the events that led up to it. So let me tell you a story. I'll tell you about what happened and how the dream that became America began. And of course, the lessons we can take away from that. Let's get into it. It all started on March 5th, 1770, when a group of British soldiers opened fire on colonists on the streets of Boston, killing 5 of them. This incited a lot of people. This upset a lot of people, but 2 men in particular were just fed up. They were done with it, and the dream of America was born that day. It started to grow that day. You know who these 2 men were? John Hancock and Sam Adams. 2 men that are revered as being the 2 first forefathers to really take the fight to the British. These 2 men, first and foremost, had a desire to remove the British from the streets of Boston, a request that Adams made to Governor Hutchinson, which the latter gladly obliged. Because, the British didn't really see the colonists as being much of a threat at the time. So it's like, are they asking me a favor? I'm going to just oblige them. Just, appease them. They can go on doing whatever they're doing. We don't really care. But the thing is, that was just the first step. With the help of Richard Henry Lee, they actually formed a correspondence committee with colonists throughout the 13 colonies to kind of band together to write letters to kind of communicate about what's going on in their particular colonies. And this later on is actually how the forefathers Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry came on board at the first congressional correspondence. But just note how much courage already was required of this, right? Most people at the time, and indeed throughout the battle with the British, were just timid. They didn't want to oppose the British because these guys were like the biggest, the baddest in the world at the time. And people just felt like, oh, we better just do what they want. We better be complacent. Not Sam Adams and not John Hancock. They were anything but. This cohesion between the colonies, the 13 colonies, and communications brought small uprisings against the British from people who felt empowered and motivated through what these people were doing. They felt that they could go out and they could protest and they could push back a little bit, but they were small. There wasn't anything major. But the British, sensing that it could be something, decided to bribe Adams, because Adams at this point was the strongest, most influential figure in the movement. So Governor Gage, who was the new governor of Boston at the time, I don't recall exactly why they got rid of Hutchinson, but they got rid of him. So now it's Governor Gage, and he actually sent men to attempt to first bribe Adams with money, saying, if you cease this attack against us, we're going to pay you, we're going to lavish you and your family with money. And when that didn't work, they decided to threaten him. They said that he was committing high treason, right? And that, for most people in that situation where it's like, you're guilty of high treason, right? They're going to freak out. They're going to be like, whoa. Not Sam Adams, though. He essentially told Governor Gage where he could shove his bribes and his threats. And obviously, this infuriated the governor, who immediately signed warrants for the arrest of Adams and Hancock, and also offered bribes to anyone else who would bend the knee and become loyal subjects again. But at this point, the momentum was going. At this point, there was something that was coming to be through organized effort. Let us just take a moment here to appreciate the supreme faith that Sam Adams had in his mission at this point, right? Like I said, most people would have been very indecisive, very shocked, very timid to hear that threat. But Adams had so much faith in his dream. He had so much faith in what he was doing. And his fellow colonists, like John Hancock, he just believed in the cause so much that he was not going to back down. He would have felt like he was betraying his brothers if he did that. So that's why he was able to courageously tell the governor to basically screw off, right? So what ended up happening was Adams and Hancock knew they crossed a point of no return, right? It was like death or glory at that point. They had to do something, because if they didn't, they were going to get arrested. They were going to get sent back to Britain. They probably would have been hung, right? So what they ended up doing is they got local colonists together. This happening in the Boston area, got colonists together, and they had a secret meeting to determine what should be the next steps in moving forward in fighting the British. And what they decided on was a formal congressional hearing that was held in Philadelphia. And this is where the forefathers from all over started to band together. This is where things really started to take off. There is strength in numbers indeed. And on September 5th, 1774, in Philadelphia was held the first congressional hearing. And this is where they started to collaborate. They started to discuss the real practical methods of what they should do with the British. And it was here that they finally decided that we are a free people. We need to get rid of these people. We need to dissolve all ties with the British. And obviously it didn't happen right away, right? Because like the first hearing was in 1774 and the declaration wasn't signed until 1776. So over the course of 2 years, they discussed, they planned, they plotted, and they determined that this was the course of action, right? They didn't waver from it, although it wasn't easy to convince everyone, right? Because even in the hearing with the big figures, there were people who were timid. There were people who didn't want to go to war. And why would you want to, right? Because war is pointless, right? Most of the time. And it's just not something people want to do. So people wanted to work it out as amicably as possible with the British. But the thing is, the British were looking down at the colonists like they were little children, basically, and they were just being petulant. And obviously, this added fuel to the fire. And finally, it was just, we're going to dissolve all ties with these people. And come what, come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day. Obviously, this was kind of a fragmented story of what happened. There was a lot of other things, a lot of other little events like the Boston Tea Party and stuff like that happened, right? But on this page, this is a success-focused page, right? We're concerned with helping you build the best mindset you can, the best persona you can, a top-notch persona. So there, let me summarize the lessons we can take away from the story. So first off, a dream is the starting point to all success, right? After the Boston Massacre in 1717, Sam Adams and John Hancock started to really think about what they could do to get rid of the British, right? Because the British were treating the colonists like crap. They killed 5 people, 5 innocent people, right? So something had to be done about that. So it started as a dream. America started as a dream. And then through persistence, because persistence is essential to success, through persistence, they followed it out. They made that dream a reality because they got to the point, where when Governor Gage issued the warrants for their arrest, it was death or glory. It was do or die. And oftentimes with success, that's what it is, right? And hopefully, I'm sure most of the times in modern days, it's not actually death or glory. You're not actually going to die. But it's essentially, you take a big risk and it succeed or you fail, right? And if you fail, it's not a failure. It's a temporary defeat and you keep on going, right? I mean, Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before he ultimately succeeded, right? Another big lesson we can take away from this, as I noted earlier on, is that faith and courage are necessities, right? If Sam Adams didn't have faith in what he was doing, he would have immediately stopped when he was threatened by the governor, right? By Gage's messenger. Any normal person, I feel, would have just stepped back after that. Somebody who wasn't completely immersed in faith and courage would have just backed down. But he had supreme faith in his cause, supreme faith in his dream, and that is what carried it through, and that's what allowed him to manifest Americas. I hope you have a great day today, a great time, if you're doing parades or cookouts or hanging out with family or friends or whatever you're doing. I hope you have a great time today, but I hope you take some time to reflect on the people who had a dream and who worked their damn hardest to make that dream a reality, because without them, we would not be where we are today, and we would not be able to celebrate this great country. All right, guys, I'm going to go celebrate. Take care. Have a great 4th, and keep going at it.